So hi, my name is Tom Gallagher. I'm a faculty member at Missoula College. Also a recent doctoral graduate from the Education Leadership Program at the University of Montana. This past summer I finished a study in completing my dissertation. I'm going to share my defense with you today. I have some slides from that. There's a couple revisions after the defense, but for the most part this is a final presentation from that particular project. Right, my experience in two-year education, I've been at Missoula College now for 16 years, and I've had lots of opportunity to be a part of students' experience in completing a baccalaureate degree in transfer education. So let me state the problem for this particular study. Okay, so increased baccalaureate time to degree for students beginning education at the two-year college could cause additional expense and debt for students, postpone employment and career opportunities, and lead to an additional burden for taxpayers responsible for funding public education. Public education is a resource and it is subsidized. So we find the findings from this study are significant for leadership and to assess leadership decisions, policy, students and parents. It's significant to those folks who are decision making, whether I should send my 18-year-old to two-year college or start them at the four-year college. Faculty, staff, and administration, how to make better decisions regarding student retention, advising. So lots of different areas and impact for this particular study. And so the purpose is that we're going to examine baccalaureate time to degree for those students choosing to begin their education at two-year colleges in the Montana University system. And so here's our research question. Is there a difference in baccalaureate time to degree between transfer students and non-transfer students in the Montana University system? Right, so it's really important to have definitions here, and our definition of a transfer student is a student who starts at one of the 5 different MUS two-year colleges and transfers at some point to a single 4-year institution in completing a baccalaureate degree. Non-transfer students are defined as those students who start and finish at the same 4-year college. Okay? Everybody else we eliminate from the study. We also have a number of sub-research questions, and there were 10 of those, and they involve time to degree but also other interesting metrics. So one, credit accumulation. Did those that were transfer students, did they accumulate more credit than those that were non-transfer students? Grade point average, did one group do better than the other? So lots of other kind of interesting nuances. So before we get into the actual study though, there's of course, like all scholars, we do a literature review prior to starting our research, and I'll kind of give you some of the finer points of that. So one of the things that was published in 1989, Britton Carabell talked about the diversion and the fact that community colleges divert students from completing a baccalaureate degree. So they come into the two-year college and they really get lost, and they're unfocused, and they don't go back to the four-year college to finish the baccalaureate. They might get distracted and start into career technical education programs. And in contrast to that, Rouse, Lee, and Gill came up with the democratization effect. In other words, community colleges provide access to higher education for all citizens, and it's an entry point for everybody. So even those students that might not have had the academic prowess coming out of high school to complete a college degree have an opportunity with things such as open enrollment, where everybody's accepted, developmental education, where people are able to come in and start in a math class where they're performing at, and then work into those college level courses. Democratization provides everybody an opportunity to pursue the American dream of completing a baccalaureate. Some other things in our literature review. It's important to remember the comprehensive mission of the community college. So community colleges are asked to do a lot of different things. So the comprehensive mission, which you've probably studied, and Cohen and Brower are probably the experts on this. Number one, developmental education. For those students that aren't prepared to take college level courses, community colleges provide the adequate preparation, typically in math and writing. Career technical education, workforce development, programs of study that lead directly to jobs for students and also enhance the local economy by providing a well-trained workforce for local businesses. Transfer education where a student starts at a two-year college with the anticipated result of moving on to a four-year college to finish the baccalaureate. And then community and continuing education. We find community colleges in small, sparsely populated regions of all over our country, and in a lot of cases, community colleges serve as a cultural hub. So the curriculum that will be kind of a byproduct of that will be things of community interest. So there might be some cooking classes or dance classes or maybe continuing education. If an architect needs maybe needs an update in their skills in an AutoCAD class, those are some continuing education opportunities that exist with the comprehensive mission. Doherty and Townsend came up with different methods for determining the community college mission. And I'll explain each of these. One is public statements, and all these really focus in on a transfer education aspect. So the first thing that happens is that we have public statements that say we're going to do transfer education. All right, and that helps determine the mission of the institution. So for instance, in the state of Montana in 2012, fairly recently here, Montana University System came out with the College Now Initiative, and basically the College Now Initiative said to all the two-year colleges, the former colleges of technology, that we're going to rebrand, and then we're also going to implement the mission of transfer education. So you folks that are in two-year colleges, you're going to do transfer education. All right, and so that's a public statement. So the mission changed, and two-year colleges were asked to do transfer education. Number two, missions are determined by curricular function. So in order for us to be a transfer education institution, we need to offer the right classes. So we need to have this nice portfolio of general education that might include writing and math that transfers into the same as maybe what a four-year college student might take. All right, so you have public statements, you have curriculum function, and the last one, which is also the hardest to really evaluate, is effects. All right, so what are the effects of our mission? So we say we do transfer education, we provide a curriculum to do transfer education, but are we really doing it? In other words, do we have students that are leaving our institution and going on to the four-year college campus and actually finishing a baccalaureate degree? And so these are the effects. So when we look at the transfer function, everybody has good intentions, but its criticism that you'll find is typically based upon the covert and unintended effects. So we say we're going to do transfer education, we provide a curriculum for it, but we're really helping students. That's what educational leaders in community colleges really need to be considered, and we need to look at whether or not our effects are actually supported by our mission. All right. Here's another interesting piece from the literature. The Education Commission of States came up with some categories or recommendations on how to ease transfer, how to make transfer more smoothly take place for students between two-year colleges and four-year colleges. And they looked at it from a state level. Okay, so first, need to have the mission. We were just talking about that, the transfer mission. And this column 2, second column right here, shows the Montana University System transfer initiatives that matched up with the Education Commission of States recommendations for transfer policies. Okay, so, and if you look at these, there's some really recent dates in the Montana University System. So for instance, I mentioned College Now, bringing a transfer education mission to the two-year colleges. That only took place 5 years ago, very recent. Cooperative agreements. Cooperative agreements are pathways or agreements that are made between, and a lot of times they're at a very departmental level, So department at the two-year college, or faculty at two-year college and faculty at the four-year college agree upon a pathway. These are the courses that a student will take the two-year college. Here's the course they'll take the four-year college, and then they'll get their degree. So these cooperative 2+2 articulations from the two-year college to the four-year college, and 2+2 is not necessarily always 2 years plus 2 more years. It might be 1 year plus 3 years, or 2.5 years plus 2 years. Kind of all over the map that way. The third transfer policy category was some sort of data reporting system. So the state actually can track students. All right, and again, this gets back to what we mentioned earlier with those kind of overt. All right, in other words, can we see that? Is that visible? All right, so do we have a data tracking system? In 2016, the final piece of that data tracking system was put in place in the Montana University system. Interestingly enough, because the two-year colleges in Helena, Missoula, Great Falls, Butte, and Billings were associated with flagship institutions, the reporting system in Montana is actually pretty good. So it goes back as far as 2001. So there's lots of years of data there. The independent community colleges were the last ones to come on board, and the tribal colleges are not on board because they're not part of the Montana University system. But we've implemented, I think Flathead Valley Community College was the last one that went into place around 2016. So there is tracking now. So we can track a student from the two-year college to the four-year college. Student incentives and rewards have been shown in other states. So students that actually transfer, if they can provide some sort of incentive for them to get to that point, it's been shown to increase graduation rates and completion rates. We don't do anything like that in the state of Montana. I believe Texas had some programs set up like that. And then articulation guides that are available online. So these last three, we'll kind of put them all together here. So common course numbering is a process where that took place in the state of Montana. It started right around 2007 and took curricular areas and brought faculty together from all MUS campuses, and through a vetting process came up with a new course numbering system so that everybody's using the same course rubric or department rubric and then course numbers. Right? So if I take a writing class, that's a basic English freshman writing class on this campus, it has the same number and rubric on every other class or every other campus in Montana University system. So for instance, math or M151 is pre-calculus for dual credit students in high schools, at Montana State University, at the University of Montana, at Missoula College, at Helena College. So it just kind of cleans up the system for students. These are all student-friendly policies. The fact that that's published also is helpful to students as well. So the fifth item here is statewide articulation guides, and you can actually go out to the MUS website and find that, where all this has been documented, right? And then the last one is statewide common course curricula, right? And so Montana in 2007 also came up with a common core general education curriculum. All right, so this is so once a student completes this core of general education, they can take that to any of the Montana University system four-year campuses, and they won't have to take any more general education, or at least that's the idea behind it. So a transferable, not just one course is transferable, but all the general education. So a whole, and they call this a core of courses that a student can take from one campus to another. All right. So these were all influential and transfer for students, meant to improve those. Now, some of you maybe have studied this and some of you haven't, but schools are social systems. Education are social systems that are purposive, in other words, that they have purpose to them, are peopled, they're structural, they're normative, and they're sanction-bearing. Okay, so these social systems have all these kind of complex interactions that take place with them. And in this particular study, where it's really relevant is that, and I'll call it culture. So if we put all these transfer incentives in place, that doesn't necessarily mean that everybody's all of a sudden going to start pursuing their college education at the two-year college. My point here is it takes a while for some of these to really become part of the culture of higher education. In Montana, we very much underutilized the two-year college system when we compare ourselves with other states. So for instance, in the state of Washington, I think around 50% or even more than 50% of students begin their college careers at two-year colleges. In Montana, we're down in the teens, so we're significantly less in that area. And as a result of it too, we have kind of a mentality built in or a culture built in that you're either a Grizzly or you're a Bobcat. That's not necessarily the way it is in the state of Washington. Most students do not start at Wazoo or the University of Washington. They start at two-year colleges. All right, just kind of interesting. So it might take some time for this to kind of take hold. All right, let's jump into the study now. All right, so methodology. This is a non-experimental quantitative research design, and we'll be using both descriptive and inferential statistics in analyzing our data. All right, the independent variable. So our independent variable is the community college experience. So these are the transfer students, so students who start at the two-year college and move forward into the four. Participants, we did a census of baccalaureate graduates from the MUS four-year campuses conferred during the time period of, and really it's 3 years, it's 2014, 2015, and 2016. And we have our two groups that we set up here. We have a group that begins and finishes at the same four-year campus, and we've entitled these non-transfer students. And then we have transfer students. These transfer students even are very specific because they have to start at one of the MUS two-year colleges and then finish at a four-year college campus. All right. Now there's this phenomenon known as swirling, and we're starting to see more of it, and I would probably point to technology and online learning as one of the reasons for it. But we have a phenomenon where we'll see students in the system that will go to multiple four-year colleges or multiple two-year colleges and a four-year college, and they'll swirl amongst these different institutions in getting their degree. Okay, interesting group, but not part of our study. So we've delimited to just those two groups that we've mentioned earlier. All right, measurement. Measuring our data, we chose to use ordinal level measurement tools. All right, if you have taken a little research class, remember there's nominal, ordinal, interval, and ratio level data. Glad I'm able to get that out. But with ordinal level data, we have rank and we have order. We have unequal categories and we're non-zero based. All right, so if you take a look at some of the information in a semester, 5 years, so we're categorizing it. And the reason we did that is that it doesn't make a lot of sense to have a have a metric that's not a full semester because we pay our tuition in full semester. So having 4.3 years to graduation doesn't make much sense. It's either 4 years or 4 years in a semester, 5 years, 5 years in a semester. Credit accumulation, we kind of did the same thing too. So credit accumulation really varies. Minimum for a baccalaureate degree is typically 120 credits, but some are be a little more than that. You know, I know, for instance, some degrees are 127 or 129 credits. So we again categorize these and note that there's no non-zero bases, and then we have these unequal categories, and then credit accumulation. You look at 160 credits or more. Well, that could be 160 credits or 200, and it's quite variable at that point. Right. Lastly, we did the same thing with GPA. We weren't really concerned about having exact GPAs, but kind of when we compare them, are they similar is what we're looking for. All right, so when we use ordinal level data, when we're looking at descriptive statistics, we look at medians. All right, let's look at our primary research question, and then we have 10 sub questions as well. Okay, so the primary research question states, the hypothesis that a statistically significant difference in baccalaureate time to degree exists between transfer and non-transfer students. All right, and so the null for that is that there is no difference. For our first sub-question, we compared credit accumulation between transfer and non-transfer students. Our second sub-research question, we compared academic performance as measured in GPA between these two groups. We're looking for differences there. All right. Our next sub-research questions, we changed our group. So now we have a group of students that are transfer students only. All right, and in these transfer students, we look to see if they completed a transfer degree, the AA and AS degree or transfer degrees, and those that didn't complete a transfer degree. All right, we measured both time to degree and credit accumulation with those groups. All right, we did the same thing with the AAS degree. The Associate of Applied Science degree is defined by many to be terminal. In other words, it's not meant for transfer, it's meant for workforce development, and following completion of it, most people don't go on to complete a baccalaureate degree. Although we found a system that's not true. We do have quite a few students that go on to complete a baccalaureate degree following that. So we wanted to compare this special group of degree recipients. So we compared transfer students again, and those with the AAS and those without the AAS. Credit accumulation, time to degree. All right. We also had this interesting configuration in organizational structures in two-year colleges in the state of Montana. So here at the University of Montana, we have a really unique situation where we have a two-year college embedded inside a four-year graduate research institution. We also have the same thing in Billings with MSU Billings, and to some degree in Butte with Highlands College, and a little bit in Gallatin. Gallatin was outside of our study because it's so new. All right. The other contrast to that is that we have independent colleges, and so Helena and Great Falls both have independent colleges that are associated with flagships. But here's the difference: it's an organizational structure. The dean at Missoula College answers to the provost, who answers to the president. Helena College has a CEO. The CEO of Helena College answers directly to the president. Okay, so it seems like a subtle difference, but that has all sorts of other implications on everything from curriculum to services that are offered to students and faculty. All right, so we want to compare those two different kind of organizational structures. All right, last thing, and you guys have been studying two-year college students, we have lots of non-traditional students, and that kind of seems to be a theme. First-generation students, non-traditional students. We had in the data the ability to look at non-traditional age, and so we're able to compare non-traditional age students that are transfer students and non-traditional age students that are non-transfer students, and we made a comparison. Does it take them longer, and then do they accumulate more credits? Right? Data analysis, we're doing both descriptive statistics and inferential statistics. Descriptive statistics, we're doing frequency tables, cumulative frequency distributions. We'll measure medians. Inferential statistics, for ordinal level data, we use a Mann-Whitney U-test. Our a priori assumptions are alpha level of 0.05, confidence level of 95%, and then effect size of small, medium, or large based upon Cohen. Post hoc will reject or fail to reject the null based upon the MWU with a alpha level of 0.05, and it will also report the effect size of small, medium, or large based upon our R value. Here's our results. All right. So as far as time to degree between these two different groups, and you can see in yellow here, I have a little table I put together at the 5-year mark. Okay, so we give everybody 5 years to complete their degree, and again, we're looking at medians here. We found 74% of non-transfer students were able to complete the baccalaureate in 5 years versus transfer students. There's only 37%. All right. So where it's really obvious here again is in if we go ahead and put together a chart, and we can see here at the 5-year mark it's almost double. So in gray are non-transfer students, and blue are transfer students, and you can see it takes we have twice as many non-transfer students finishing after 5 years as transfer, and it's quite a distance before it catches up. So if you look at we're 70%, well, it's really 6 years in a semester. We get to closer to 60 to 70%. Okay. Here's another table we put together. All right, and this looks at the different campuses across the MUS system, the 4-year campuses, and the median for non-transfer and transfer students to finish at the baccalaureate. And we see with non-transfer students, it's around 4 years in the semester to 5 years. With transfer students, though, we're looking at 6 years. And so if you look at the total, the bottom row there, 4 years, 1 semester, 6 years. If you're a transfer student, it takes longer. All right, so time to degree for transfer students was longer, with the median being 6 years, than non-transfer students, where the median was 4 years of 1 semester. So we rejected the null hypothesis, but we did find effect size was small. Okay, moving forward to our other questions here. So credit accumulation. We compared credit accumulation between our two groups, and we can look from the descriptive statistics that the median was 130 to 139 credits for non-transfer students, and the median for transfer students was in the 140 to 149 credit category. And again, we had observed with a Mann-Whitney U-test, we did see a statistically significant difference between credit accumulation. All right, so the null hypothesis was rejected. All right, looking at our next sub-question, we look at academic performance. So we're comparing GPAs between these two groups. And we take a look at this, and interestingly enough, and it's highlighted here in yellow, the majority had a median GPA in that 3.0 to 3.49 area. And they both were almost in every category the same. All right, so our conclusion was, well, descriptively, these are almost identical. And with our inferential statistics, we found that there is no statistically significant difference. So the null hypothesis was not rejected. The two are the same. All right, getting to questions 3 and 4. So if these students already have a degree, and these are transfer degrees, does it take them longer? And the answer to a question, if we take a look at it, they're almost exactly the same. All right, and so if you look at the very bottom row here, the median time with a transfer degree and without a transfer degree are both 6 years. All right, so a statistically significant difference was not observed in time to degree based upon whether or not a student had a transfer degree. All right, we did the same thing here with credit accumulation. And if you look at the bottom row here, you can see that credit accumulation was more for those with the transfer degree. And so we did find that was supported in the differential statistic, or inferential statistics, excuse me. Statistically significant difference was observed, and the null hypothesis was ejected. So they're not the same for credit accumulation, but they were the same for time to degree. All right. The AAS degree, which is again the career technical education degree, one not meant for transfer, and we showed this one in a bar chart here, and you can see that in the gray are those without the AAS degree, and in the blue are those with the AAS degree, and you can see that it does take longer time to degree, and that was reinforced in our inferential statistics. We found that there was a statistically significant difference between these two groups, so we rejected the null hypothesis. And then credit accumulation, we also found that there was a statistically significant difference here as well. All right, so it's going to take you longer. You're going to accumulate more credits if you have the AAS degree, or you take the AAS degree path. Campus organization. All right, so we look at time to degree and credit accumulation, and then now we're comparing the two groups that come from either embedded two-year colleges or independent two-year colleges. Embedded examples would be Missoula College and City College in Billings. Independent would be Great Falls and Helena. All right, so do we find any differences? Well, look at the chart. They actually ended up being almost identical at every level. So a statistically significant difference was not observed based upon the campus organization. So whether you went to an independent or an embedded, time to degree was the same. We also found that was true for credit accumulation. All right, lastly, we had this nice opportunity here to look at non-traditional age students. All right, and that was in our data. So we looked at those that were transfer students of non-traditional age and those that were non-transfer students of non-traditional age. And what we found, well, we'll look at a couple things we found, but there was a statistically significant difference in time to degree. So we didn't, but we didn't find a statistically significant difference in credit accumulation. Okay, so that was a little bit unexpected, and you know, maybe there's some explanations for that based upon the categorization of our data here. But was one of the things that we did find is that there was a much higher percentage of non-traditional age students at the two-year college. All right, which reinforces a lot of things you read in the literature, so that the two-year college attracts a different crowd of students, and those are non-traditional age students or non-traditional responsibilities. All right, conclusions and recommendations. All right, so first some conclusions. Students using the MUS two-year college, they're going to take longer. All right, and we looked at 3 different years, and we saw that they take longer. They have more credit accumulation, but interestingly enough, we have similar academic performance. So the GPAs are the same between transfer students and non-transfer students. All right, so that's really interesting. It might take longer, but they're prepared. You know, that would be one conclusion I have. The students that come out to your colleges are very much prepared. And they might even be better prepared than some of the 4-year college students. All right, completion of the AA and AS degree doesn't change time to degree. All right, it does increase credit accumulation, but not time to degree. Completion of the AAS degree does increase both baccalaureate time to degree and credit accumulation. There's no differences in independent colleges and embedded two-year colleges. And a higher concentration of students of non-traditional age use the two-year college system in earning the baccalaureate. All right. Some of the strengths and some of the challenges of this study. So one of the strengths we found is that we got to a very, very reliable source of data, and that was the MUS data warehouse. And the strength is that in the Montana University system, we are collecting this data. And so that's a strength of our study. Another strength is that we didn't look at a single year. We did a multiple year study. So we looked at 3 years of graduation data. A third strength is that we limited the transfer students to those within a single system. Okay, so we don't have transfer students from other states that kind of maybe cause some noise in our data. These are just Montana University system students. Weakness, we did find some real kind of anomalies in the data collection or reporting, and actually we just discarded these individuals as participants. So for instance, saw a couple that graduated in 2 years. Well, that's just not possible for a baccalaureate, particularly when their credit accumulation was less than 120 credits. So we figure that there's some sort of error in the system of reporting. Another weakness is the timing of the study. So this particular study took place very, very shortly after a lot of the innovative things that the leadership in the state of Montana attempted to do. So the transfer mission was officially given to the two-year colleges in 2012, and the study took place 2014, 15, 16. There's just not enough time in it. We also mentioned the cultural aspect of that, where people have awareness and appreciation for two-year colleges. It's going to take a little while for that to take place. All right. Okay, the significance of our findings here. This is a really important addition to the research literature. And one reason is that there's limited studies. There's lots of studies on time to degree, but there's limited ones which cover baccalaureate time to degree, and particularly within a single statewide system. All right, so that kind of helped fill in one of those empty spots in the literature. Another important finding was that folks might consider it to be a less expensive option to start at the two-year college, and that might not be the case if it takes you longer. The reason they might want to choose to start there is because tuition's lower. It's about 50% less to start the two-year college, but if it's going to extend your stay, your overall return on investment is maybe going to be less. All right, so this impacts student choice, and if we're advertising as less expensive, we need to do that very carefully. Extended time to degree and excessive credit accumulation reinforce a label that you find all through the research literature, and that's called the community college penalty. So these students that choose to start at the two-year college pay the penalty that's going to take them long. Now, it should be tempered at the same time with the community college. Students are attracted here because of smaller class sizes, because of faculty that are primarily concerned with teaching and not research and scholarly activity. There's lots of reasons. These are small, these are nurturing environments for students. Some students wouldn't complete the baccalaureate at all if they didn't start at the two-year college. It might have been lost earlier on. So this needs to be tempered a little bit as we kind of look at the community college penalty, that there's a whole other aspect of it, that there's a very good reason why students start at two-year colleges. Some may not have had the opportunity to have a good high school experience and might need a developmental education. Another fact that came out of this is Montana really underutilizes its two-year college system. And you can look at, I mentioned briefly that state of Washington has 50+%, even across other states have much greater utilization of its two-year college system than the state of Montana. All right. Fifth point here is that this is a really important access point of higher education for non-traditional students. And these are folks that might be of non-traditional age or non-traditional responsibility as well. So there's services available and opportunity, accessible education for all members of our society in the two-year colleges. All right, some recommendations. One, this study showed that there is the opportunity to complete a regular cycle of time to degree. In other words, we saw that it can be done, and so this could potentially be a means for continued systemic assessment of transfer education. Second recommendation. All right, this whole premise that lower tuition rates at two-year colleges provide a cost-effective route to the baccalaureate may or may not be true. So I think as education leaders, we need to be very cautious about how we present that and make sure that we're totally accurate in that particular statement. Third point recommended out of that in 2012, the Montana University system brought the expansion of mission to two-year colleges to include transfer. This was an unfunded mandate. This was one that did not come with any funding to expand faculty, to expand course offerings, and it was a very significant shift in what had traditionally been a career technical education institution throughout Montana. So this may be one of the shortcomings of this mission expansion, and it might be something that leadership would want to consider revising. Fourth recommendation here is that effective leadership on local MUS campuses is critical in recognizing and responding to the demands of the comprehensive community college mission at a time of limited resources. And we hear a lot about the limited resources at the University of Montana, but it's that way at all two-year colleges. It's been that way since the recession ended about 2012, 2013. We started to see enrollment drop quite significantly at some places. And so now we've expanded our mission, we've expanded our offerings, and we have less students in almost all the two-year colleges in Montana. So it's going to be up to leadership how they want to juggle that. All right, and I think an appropriate quote here comes from Doherty and Townsend. Basically states that leaders and state policy makers face difficult decisions about which missions to emphasize given limited resources, competing claims of various internal and external stakeholders, and tensions between these various missions. So this is one of the challenges, I think, for every dean, CEO, and actually faculty, legislators, policymakers at the MUS is how are we gonna, what's the two-year college system gonna look like in the future with limited resources? Okay, so that's the end of my presentation. Thank you for taking time to listen to this and watch this with me today. I am certainly available to answer any questions via email. I'll leave my phone number for you as well if you want to talk about something. And I have one other little thing I want to say to you, that if you are in a doctoral program in education leadership, I want to reinforce that you'll get through comps, you'll get through your dissertation, keep your nose to the grindstone, and don't be intimidated by any of this stuff, because you guys can do it. Okay, thank you.